Hello everybody, or people that are listening in future to the recording. My name is William O'Halloran. I work on the Wildwork Initiative for SECAD Partnership, the local development company down in Cork. And today I'm here with David Stafford from Cavan County Local Development, Caitriona Scully from West Limerick Resources, Aaron J from Emagine, and Claude McGurk, my colleague from SECAD Partnership as well. So we're going to have a panel discussion. It's going to be a relatively organic chat. We have a plan, right, for it, but we're not sure what they're going to say. So what my job is to talk with these guys, ask them a few questions about why they're on the stage. And for me, why I'm on the stage is I've been associated with what's called the Wildwork Cooperation Project. It was a project that happened in 2022 across Cork, Limerick and Cavan. It was all about wild work. And I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to go on to David. But David, the first time I met this lad, well, there was a contact. There was an email or a phone call or something came. I heard about this wildwork thing there. We're interested in wildflower seeds. My Cavan accent's terrible. We're interested in wildflower seeds and maybe doing something with two participants. Is there something you might be interested in? Giving us a hand. We saw, and we were like, of course, we're interested to maybe expand this thing we were starting. And it was one of the first times we'd opened up a conversation with another local development company. And Cavan, to cut the long story short, ended up part of the cooperation project with us, along with West Limerick Resources. But without me going on any further, David, I'm going to ask you what it was that brought you to the project, what drew you into wild work.
Yeah, myself and Terry have been discussing trying to enhance biodiversity in the county for a couple of months. And then Terry had mentioned that he'd become aware of wild work operated by SECAD, so we got in touch to see how we might replicate some of what you were doing or borrow some ideas from you and establish a wildflower seed bank in Cavan. And the purpose of that was so that it would be community based, so we'd be producing wildflower seed and then redistributing it each year on a greater and greater scale throughout the county. Now we were very lucky in when the seed bank idea became established, that we were given lands by Barry Kavanagh, who's an award-winning garden designer in Bryden, County Cavan. So we had access to ancient wildflower meadows there, so we could utilise the seed from there. And this year we've been distributing some of that, and we'd be looking at harvesting that then. Yeah,
Man, so like this conversation was sort of born, and we opened up the conversation with other local development companies. One day we had a presentation at an ILDN network, and a few people in the room were quite interested to explore options, and very quickly this grew into there's potential here for a cooperation project. So we started working more closely with Limerick and Cavan, trying to put together some sort of a project idea. Now, we knew there was a fund there, but we knew there was wild work, we knew there was biodiversity, we knew we were all interested, but we didn't really know what the project was, and eventually we began to figure it out. And one of the things we were looking for was, what was it that each of us could maybe specialise in? We wanted to pick themes rather than us all doing the exact same thing. We wanted to pick these themes that each one of us could get stuck into. So the lads in Cavan were working on wildflower seed banks, and in Limerick the concept that they were very interested in, kind of linked with the Greenway initially in Limerick, was on developing a biodiversity corridor, working with community groups along that Greenway. So that led to the experience that Caitriona and Limerick had, and I'll let you speak about that.
Yeah, so I had the benefit of joining when it got very fun, so I wasn't involved in the actual application process. We specialised on the biodiversity corridors, where we identified two walking trails in two very different areas. One was the Mulligar walking trails, and then there was down along the Shannon Estuary. So two very different types of habitats. We brought two community groups together, and there was 5 modules where there was like an introduction to what, like the importance and exactly what biodiversity corridors are. And then we looked at invasive species, pollinators, bumblebees and butterflies specifically. And then there was like a recap of how we can best manage habitats. So yeah, we had the benefit where we got to get the groups so they could swap over and then like apply their training to where they hadn't experienced it, and maybe identify different ways that they could manage these biodiversity corridors.
Yeah, thanks, Caitriona. So Aaron is here to speak about Emagine's role in the project in creating video output, virtual reality that she might have had a chance to try in there in the tent. But Aaron, just firstly, I'd like to ask you about to tell us about the experience that your crew had on this project, because essentially these guys got to see everything up close and personal, and there was a camera crew following a lot of the training. So I'm sure guys told you some stories about what the experience was like. Would you be happy to share a bit of that with us, please?
Some of it, yeah.
The safer work pads.
What they get up to on a shoot is their own business, to be honest. No, I think the biggest key for us was to try to, we had to get to the same exact spot because we were doing seasonality. And if it's spring, summer, fall, and winter, there's no point in showing different spots. So have the same spot. So a lot of it was geolocating exactly where we were. The last time we came back in March, and then in the fall, we had to start in the springtime. So we did winter last. So that was interesting, actually, to be able to pinpoint the exact location for a purpose,
Another thing that you might have forgotten that you did for everyone involved in the program was you actually taught people, and you taught the trainers and participants how to use your phone to capture video. And if you watch the video outputs from this program, you'll see that there's loads of little snippets of stuff that came directly from the participants who were learning about nature. And that was actually, I thought, one of the great things that you did do. It was simple, no skin off your back. But how did you find that, of actually trying to help others to capture that material and bring it to life in a real professionally produced video?
Well, I suppose it's giving people awareness of what you can do with your camera, and the best camera I own is the one in my pocket right now, and I've been a photographer for 15 years, and I know John was doing a lot of the coursework, but it's stuff that we do every day that you kind of just think, no, you need to get closer, you need to keep the horizon level. There's small little tricks that we don't even think about anymore. And we had to kind of slow down and go, oh, hold on a second. They just don't know these things by default. And it was nice to have a community contribution to it, so that a lot of the material would come from the participants.
Okay. So, I'm going to come back to, we're saving the best for last here with Clodagh. And part of that is I'm going to pull back from her again and go back to David here, right? So, David, this seed bank concept, they had an idea, they knew they wanted to do something. But we actually tried this experiential approach where, quite deliberately, we knew what we wanted to kind of learn about and explore. But the idea of this project was, let's take on the concept of creating a community seed bank, whatever that is. Let's explore it with local community groups and RSS farmers in particular, and see what we learn at the end of it. And then what's learned at the end of it kind of gets regurgitated back out into shareable learning resources, which are forthcoming now. So what did you learn in the seed bank? What was the experience like? What kind of stands out for you from that process?
What you said was the experiential learning. So we started again in spring, and we went through seed selection, planting. We've done over 5 different courses over 6 months, so we got to see the whole life cycle of the seed, and then through flowering stage, then harvesting, different methods of harvesting, then seed storage, and then what we were going to do afterwards in terms of why are we doing it in the first place. And that was to build up a stock of indigenous seed from the locality, from Cavan, that would be, would fare better throughout the county. So that was the purpose of it.
Yeah, and did it as it moved more towards a kind of community-oriented project rather than necessarily, it's not a commercial focus on it, it's more, would I be right saying that?
Yeah, no, it's a community-based at this point anyway. There might be some of the participants were talking maybe that it could be a commercial venture down the road for some farmers.
Okay.
Because seed stock is quite expensive.
Yeah.
That's one thing that people learned. So we were lucky, as I said earlier, that we were lucky that Barry allowed us to use his ancient wildflower meadows, because we had a stock there of indigenous seed that we could harvest and then redistribute. And as years go on, we'll be looking at increasing the number of sites within the county.
Right. So,
but again, that's not on a profit.
We'll come to that later, because all of this project becomes a catalyst for ideas and then new actions down the line. In each of the 4 territories, we also had what we call the Public Lands Project. And the idea of it was to look at a public site, maybe owned by the local authority, a community park or a Quilcha woodland or somewhere like that, right? And to bring together the people who own that, who have responsibility for that, so like maybe the local authority folk or the Quilcha folk or the national parks and whoever it might be, right? State agency people. Bring them together with local community activists interested in biodiversity action. and get them together to explore the concept of biodiversity action in this place, what it entails, what are the nuts and bolts when it comes down to it of implementing stuff, not just about here's things you could do. So it was an exploratory process, but there was some very good things happen on that in Assumpta Park in Limerick,
Yeah.
and there's some outcomes, and I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, it's my favourite. It's my little passion project. So right in the centre of Newcastle West, in the middle of West Limerick, there's like, it's quite a built up urban area now, but there's like a few small, like little, as we said, corridors but there's this small little park in this like council estate that used to have a playground and it used to be really well utilised, but there's a pathway just going through it and all it gets is walked through. So I kind of spotted that as being a really good spot to create like a nature reserve in essence, but also to maybe get more of the kids involved that live in the estate. And just by chance, Feroiga is down at the bottom of the estate, just in the market yard. So we brought together the Tidy Towns, who've been really heavily involved in trying to develop biodiversity in the area. So Newcastle West Tidy Towns with Feroiga, and we've connected them up with the landowner, it being public lands, the Limerick City and County Council. And we brought them together with us and Wildwork we did 4 individual sessions on how to develop a biodiversity action plan for the area, but always with the view to it becoming maybe like an outdoor nature, an outdoor classroom or a nature play area, so that the kids who, there'd be, mixed kind of households in the area that would really benefit from having something that is very nature focused, to reconnect them with nature. So we've worked now since we've got the biodiversity action plan. It's always going to be a very long term project, but we've got engagement from the council and we've got a few, and we're going to maybe put it through LEADER and actually do a feasibility study on how to actually develop the space now, because it's quite a large space and there's still a lot of nature in it. So I'm really looking forward to it actually. I mean, maybe I don't want to put a timeline on it, but I hope within the next 3 years we'll see an actual nature play area there.
Brilliant. So Clodagh, you were also able to enjoy this program as a participant in the West Cork area, like go along to some of the training, and it would have been a good chance for you to learn some stuff about biodiversity, I'm sure, but perhaps more so an opportunity to, through wild work, through nature or through biodiversity as a topic almost, to get to meet other like-minded people or community groups interested in this topic. And I know I've been speaking to Clodagh on the way up in the van, and there's so many different groups in West Cork now that she's involved, liaising with, to do with things to do with biodiversity. It's a real interesting topic. But regards the introduction to wild work training, the 6-part program that ran down there, how did you find that in that regard, as a way to kind of network and meet people and create ideas aside from what you might have just learned on it?
Yeah, well, I think that was the magical bit, was the being outside and having that time and opportunity to meet new people, whether like-minded people or people who were already very active and aware of their local landscapes and habitats and biodiversity, and also people who weren't, who were there out of curiosity or maybe new to the area. So there was a lot. Yes, the program was there, and there were set landscapes and habitats that we were visiting on those any one day, but there were new connections made in individuals and in groups, and everybody learned something new, and there was this sense of awe in every session, which was amazing, which was the added I think the such a valuable part of the program was that connection, that nature connection, that really personal experience, the sharing of stories, and the expert ecologists who were coming in, they absolutely brought so much knowledge with them, but the locals also brought so much knowledge and stories as well. So there was so much more came out of it for everybody. It wasn't prescribed. There was lots of time and space to explore and discover and make those connections, and they have continued on. There was a huge demand for the program, and people are so keen to continue those connections and find out what other new projects can be done with us or outside of us. So that was a huge positive, and maybe having the time together as well, outdoors, in person. Was obviously the huge bonus of it.
Yeah, one of the things that we knew that the program would become a catalyst for action. We just knew it. Bring people together, explore this stuff. Someone goes, we should do this, we could do this. Why is this happening? And we wanted to capture that. And what we did this year is we went back around to all the 4 territories, and we went on the road with this concept called 100 Actions for Nature. We wanted to come up with a list of 100 actions that could be implemented for nature or to do with nature, essentially in a local development company territory. And it was also a way to kind of celebrate the learning and share what happened in the cooperation project. But we said, why not turn it into something productive? So how did you guys find that experience of kind of tapping back in with the participants again a few months after the program? I'll come to you first, David.
We're looking actually with the climate change group in Cavan. Some of them were on the wildwork course as well. And we're looking at having a significant trees project now. So we'll be linking in there and actually looking at linking them up through walkways as well.
When you say significant trees project, what would you...
It'll be the identification of different trees within the county of significance to someone. And particularly old species of trees. And actually looking at propagating some of them as well.
Great.
Yeah.
So the seed stuff isn't necessarily just wildflowers, it could be trees related.
Yeah.
Very good. Caitriona?
Yeah, I suppose our biggest follow-on was an invasive species. Like one thing that a lot of our community groups didn't necessarily know the extent of the problem in the area once they started the identification process and realising how difficult they were to manage. So we had a few requests to actually roll out an invasive species management training program that could be done at a community level. So we've just actually finished up the training on that. So there's still yet more call to, they're asking for like wider scale management programs. And so I think that's, it feels like negative to say it because there's a big problem with it, but like that there's a management appetite there.
And like, so at a community level, what I'm hearing is that there is a big demand for investment or action to be happening on the ground. And who is, you mentioned that you brought in people to do the project. Who's doing the work for you? And
yeah, well, we had Very come in to do the training again. So they would be the same ecologists who would have been brought in to work with us on wild work. So we obviously tendered out again, and Very were the successful tender again. So we had Kieran, who was he was actually quite involved with our groups on the ground in the first place. So it was like a continuation of that training, like it was like a natural kind, almost phase 2. So it was really good progression, I felt.
Yeah, but like for the people with the local development hats on, one of the things about this is interesting is that we are actually, it might be more indirect, but this does create investable opportunities. Where the money comes from is one thing, but if you ever come across ecologists or people that work in consultancy, private, whatever, this programs like this is actually drawing up projects and activities, and hopefully that's kind of one of the original ideas of Wildwork, is that it could have an employment activation concept to it. Now that's a big word to use, but actually if we draw awareness to all this stuff, there is a kick on, lead on. So they've already had securing funding and leading on to new projects. And Clodagh, I might come to you on that as well, because Clodagh now is working on a schools project in down in Cork. You might tell us a bit about that, please.
So obviously from the cooperation project, more ideas are generated, and I suppose maybe there was such huge demand, and participants were so engaged and such positive feedback. But I suppose from there we identified there are groups that we hadn't engaged with there. So one being children and young people. So from taking from the learnings of the bigger cooperation project, we developed a program for biodiversity training for primary schools in Cork, which we've rolled out this year. And it's again really successful. So obviously using that wild work approach to engage people in their local habitats and experiential learning. So it's all outdoors, and we've delivered it to 5th and 6th class students over 6 sessions, pre-summer from April to June, and now again September to October, using a lot of the tools and learnings that came out of the cooperation project, which is great, which including the toolkit and the VR headsets. Exploring local, keeping it local, and developing that personal connection and understanding with local landscapes and local habitats. And it's been a really, really successful, really a huge demand from schools, which is really good. And throughout the project, we've been identifying what are those next steps. What else do the schools want? What is the infrastructure or the additional support that they might want to continue this type of learning? And in a very integrated way, that it's biodiversity, it's nature, it's well-being, it's local civic engagement and participation. So again, huge outputs from it. And again, from this, we've been in discussion a little bit more about other possibly harder to reach groups, and how we might use the approach again to engage people in their local environments, in their habitats and nature, and again keep building, but it keep identifying new areas where people want to go, and so the school has been really successful and almost finished the training program there with them. And then when all that feedback back comes in, we can kind of see what the next steps and where it brings us.
So one of the next steps or the future of this stuff is actually to do with technology. That's an element of it, but something that's very snazzy and new, and people go, wow, this new thing is this virtual reality experience that's developed. And what I realised personally, actually, in working with John and other people in Emagine to do with helping to kind of fine-tune and piece this thing together, is I started realising with these lads that they haven't necessarily done this before, or they hadn't done this before. And no one has done this before in Ireland. So whatever you think about, it's good or it's bad or it could be better or it's amazing, it's more that it's unique and it's new, it's something new and creative. And I think it's a great example of what can come out of the local community development sector, because this has come up from the ground very much so through a cooperation project. But Aaron, I'd love to get a little bit of insight what you think about the potential for virtual reality moving forward in Ireland, and in the kind of the nature wild work angle. What do you see? What opportunities, or where can this go?
Well, there's huge opportunities, and like just on that note of, we actually invented a few tools. We it's sometimes you get a project in and you say, yeah, we can do that, and then you look at it and go, well, that doesn't actually exist yet. And it's especially true with VR because it's so brand new that we literally had to make up tools, and we've created things that, sure, James has been tied to his desk. We brought him out today for a day out,
It's one day out a year.
It's one day out a
You're so
year.
welcome.
That's it, But we did invent some tools to make this work, and they're all there now and part of our toolkit. It's important to say, and I think it's really important, that we always say that technology is not the story. Nobody goes to a movie theater and asks what projector is showing the Oscar-winning film. They just want to see the film. And ultimately for us, it's the story that's being told, and it's not really the technology. We facilitate the technology part of it, but it's the story that's being told that's important. And the things that are really strong with VR are scale and proximity and being able to take people where they normally can't go. So if you take it like the kids, maybe they're in an inner city group, they're never ever going to get the chance to be out 50 meters above a field in Cavan to learn about nature. So this is an opportunity to be able to bring them out. And I think, like, why limited to a meadow and a woodland? You could do, marshlands, you could do lakes, you could do waterways, the seaside. There's all kinds of different environments, and they all have different stories to tell. And I think that's important, especially for kids. Kids love this stuff. They don't have any qualms at all about lashing a headset on and starting messing around and see if I can break it. They're into it. So I think it's really important for kids. They're the next generation that are they've always grown up with this. It's not new for them. It's normal. So.
Yeah. David, what's happening up in Cavan with the different groups? You've got a few seed projects going up there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was actually a bad year this year.
Yeah.
For us to start. It was very dry.
Yeah.
We were planted. So hopefully it'll be next year where we start to see the fruition of what we were working on this year. It wasn't such a good crop this year.
And who are you working with there? Like, what do you have in mind? Who are you bringing together?
It's actually GAA grounds we're working with this year.
Okay.
We had, actually on the seed saving course, we had the ex-president of the GAA on it. So we worked with him this year, and with his local GAA club was the main one that we were doing it with.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of GAA clubs.
There's a lot of GAA clubs, yeah. A lot of grounds, which was one of the reasons why we got involved with the project in the first place, was to do with landscape management and to try and cut back with the use of mechanical equipment. So actually we purchased different equipment this year, not just scythes, but some mechanical equipment to try and we're going to be testing it out now in the next couple of weeks.
Very
See
good.
how effective it is.
And we're exploring other things. One of the new things I know we are looking at, maybe developing something with virtual reality, that we want to be able to give people experiences they can't have, like Aaron described. But it's like, who are those people? With one angle we didn't mention is perhaps someone who's in a hospital bed or a nursing home, that there's a way to provide that experience for them. I was in a doctor's surgery the other day just with my daughter for a checkup thing, and they had like YouTube videos playing of like natural sound. The video quality is pretty good, but then they had like handpipe music. I was like, turn it off. But you could see that they actually, in the doctor's surgery, saw a need for something like this. So it has great potential. But you know, the big thing that I would like to say about Wildwork always to people is that we're being positive about this story. So everyone that we engage with in this program, there's over 600 people involved in this program in some way, shape or form. And they've all had a positive, enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't biodiversity, climate change, don't want to know about it, it's just a bit too heavy a topic. It was like, let's embrace the beauty of our local landscape, learn what's in my park, my community. And it's amazing the experience we had when we went around the country to different places.
Yeah.
Everyone was like beaming about this thing about being a wild worker. And that's the real strength that this thing has here as well, is it's kind of something to bind people together, and that's what wildwork is, but it's what nature itself is as well. So you've got no questions. Are you sure I can put it back to you again? You're all Suzanne, I knew it. Yeah, she has a comment. So we're done.
Yeah, I suppose just to say, like, we've been using nature as a tool for engagement in SECAD for years, and we're lucky enough to have a number of in-house ecologists, and we integrate nature into everything we do. And I think it's a real missing resource in many of the local development companies where we have to hire in the expertise from outside. And you can very easily integrate nature and the environment into a lot of community development work. And I think, it mentions that, Carl, in the pre-budget submission for LDN around climate and that side of things. And I think, it's the resource, it's the people resource that many are missing. And I think we could do an awful lot with it.
Thanks, Suzanne. So if you do have any questions or curiosity, I always say it, like, you get in touch, look us up, get in contact. There's a load
Back to the centre.
Yes, thanks, Suzanne.
Hello, I just want to give you one example of what can be done. I gave my farm to my son 15 years ago, and I retired. And he was a real young, modern farmer. He was sowing all the wrong things, doing all the wrong things. And 2 years ago, he went down to UCC to do a course on sustainability. And he's a changed person.
Yeah.
So we need to educate the young to do the right thing. I heard him talking in London a fortnight ago. He was having a chat with an English farmer that we know, and he was telling the English guy what he should be doing. He was absolutely gone 360 degrees to become a more sustainable farmer. So we do have to educate and get as many people. Pardon? What? We do have to try to get as many people that's going into farming now to farm sustainably.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant.
You want that?
Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Yeah, and the last word on it there is that there's a whole load of information on the website about Look Up Cooperation Project, and most, or not, if not all, of the resources that came out of the program, videos, reports on ecological corridor management, all of that is up there. Have a look, and thanks very much for listening to our chat.